Welcome to the Afterlife Files, where we investigate near-death experiences, shared death experiences, and how they affect you. Unlike podcasts that are just stories, we give you a heads up on what to look for in our conversation. And then, after the interview, stick around. We help you make sense of those accounts so you can incorporate the insights into your life. I think you'll find that once having your most profound questions answered, living life in the physical is filled with more peace and joy. Shared death experiences, otherwise known as SDEs, are still relatively rare, and we are lucky to have met Janet Johnson, who had two shared death experiences in conjunction with the same event, her father's passing a year ago. Her story is filled with subtle cues as to how SDEs affect you and what they tell us about living in the physical. Right at the beginning of the interview, we learned something vitally important: how difficult it is for non-physical entities to tell us physical beings about events that happen in linear time. Listen for how she asks the question about the timing of her father's passing. The answer she receives is profound. And then she rephrases the question and she gets an answer she desires. The second thing that made me smile is how she is transported to a party thrown in her father's honor. It's one of the common elements of a near-death experience, and here we see it in a shared death experience. At the reunion, we see that Janet's father is not 95, but rather living life in the non-physical as a young man in the prime of his life. Third, there is a wonderful, wonderful description of her dad's non-physical energy. Please note how many senses are involved as Dad passes through her at the moment of transition. Lastly, and I find this so intriguing, I asked Janet how her SDE changed her. She listed two things. But later, in the last 5 minutes of the interview, she starts to articulate more and more changes. The question that's still unanswered in my mind is, why were they not talked about up front? Why do you think? Here's our interview with Janet Johnson. We have a really special guest with us today. It's Janet Johnson, and she is the daughter, sister, wife, mother, and grandmother, and most of all, a seeker. As the youngest in a family of 6 children, she was raised in Eastern Oregon as a country girl on a small farm. Looking back, she realizes she began contemplation and meditation as a child while swinging on a tire swing, sitting high in the branches of trees, or on the barn roof. After divorce, remarriage, and raising her children, she took a life turn by leaving the religion she was raised in and devoted to. She began her seeking unencumbered. In April 2020, she began caretaking her elderly parents. This interview is about the shared death experience she had with her dad as he passed away at the age of 95. Welcome, Janet. We're really glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
So start us off. Tell us your story.
So in 1st of August of 2020, I began caretaking Dad full time, with Hospice coming in to bathe him and take care of him, and the nurse and all that stuff, which they were just absolutely, I don't know. It was just wonderful. It was wonderful.
It's true. I think the people who work in hospice deserve an extra star in heaven.
And they really, and because he was on hospice, and he previous to this had decided that if he got to a point where he wouldn't recover well, that we would just let him go. So during that caretaking time, when it was primarily me 24/7, and instead of sleeping, so my husband and I moved into this house and we were staying downstairs. I slept though on a cot upstairs so that I could see his room and had the baby monitor thing so that I could know when he was up, and he was up and around, and if he fell or anything like that. So it was hard. Yeah, I don't really love dark winters anyway. And then think of the backdrop again, everything was crazy. So before I get to the point of his departure, I wanted to say that now this is my side, the personal part was like, how long is this going to last? How long do I need to do this? Because I was really stuck. I mean, I couldn't really leave except just briefly, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes to the grocery store if he was taking a nap, or if I had somebody I had to arrange. It was just really taxing. Even though it was precious, it was taxing. So I kept asking the question in meditation, how long is this going to last? How long is this going to last? And the answer kept coming back, now.
Really?
Now. It's just going to last now. So in other words, the answer was just to get present. And so I just started to get really present, and we had some craft things we were doing, and as he began to decline, and so Christmas passed. Okay, let me back up. So then let me back up, sorry. So I asked, how long is this going to last? And the answer came back, now. Just be present. It's just going to be now. So then I changed my question. And I said, when will they pass? Or when will he pass? And the answer came very clearly, just intuitively, just kind of flooded into my head, near his mother's birthday in his 56th year. And in my mind, I thought, not 56, sorry, 96th year. 96th year near his mother's birthday. And I thought, 96, that's another year and a half. And I thought, oh, okay, Janet, just relax. It's going to be. And then I realized he would turn, his 95th birthday would be February 6th. So he would become in his 96th year. And his mother's birthday was March 21st.
Okay.
So I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe it'll be true. Maybe it won't. And I also had an understanding about my mom when she might pass. Now she's still kicking and doing pretty well, and she's 94. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. Maybe it'll be true. Maybe it won't. And I just released it. So that was in about December that I was questioning and wondering as I was going deep into winter. So in March, what day was it? March 10th, I guess it would be. I heard that as I was sleeping, and it was early morning, still dark outside. I heard the thunk. And I jumped up and I looked at the monitor, and I thought he was still in bed, but his room light was off. He usually got turned his night light on when he got up to go to the bathroom at night. So there was just real patterns. And I didn't see a night light on. I mean, I didn't see his night light, bed light on. And it looked like from the monitor he was still in bed. And so I just kind of strolled over there instead of running like when he's fallen before. My whole body was running before I was even awake. And so I opened the door, and he was on the floor, and he had gotten up, and he had his walker backwards, and he walked and he ran into the wall, and he fell down. And anyway, it turns out that he had broken his tailbone and other parts, other things. And at the time I didn't really know it all. I just helped him back to bed and called the nurse. And then he began on heavy pain meds because he was in a tremendous amount of pain. And we can never get him to drink enough water anyway. He was always dehydrated. And so that began a 6-day slow vigil of him slowly not being able to eat and drink. And it took 6 days for him to finally pass. And it was long and hard, and some of the siblings came, and it was a thing. So every night that I would put Dad to bed, to back up, every night that I would put him to bed, I'd always kiss his forehead, move his things, kiss his forehead, and then put my cheek down. And there were hundreds of nights. And he would give me a kiss and tell me how much he loved me and appreciated me. Sorry. And the 2 days before he finally passed, I went in and did that again. And we had always had somebody on vigil in the room, you know. And the last thing communication that he did to everybody outwardly was to give kisses. It was really sweet. So the nights he was up, and it was a slow process, and he had no pain, and he was under medications, and he just was slowly going. And my sister and her husband were up here watching. This was on the 16th. And I was exhausted, and Mom was exhausted, been up many nights. I went downstairs to sleep. And I lay down and on my side, and I immediately went into this dream. And at this dream, I was standing behind a picnic table. And this is key. And at the picnic table, and it was at a park, and I could see that there was green grass, but it was kind of bright behind there. And on the back side of the picnic table, so I was on the long side where the other bench was my Dad's sister, Leela, who passed in the October before. So this is March. And there's Dad. And Dad is sitting on his heel on the bench and one leg off. So he's sitting kind of sideways. And they're laughing and talking. And they're both very close. This is Mom and Dad. Dad's very close to this age. And he was about 22 years old. Hair was kind of curly up, and Leela was also 21, 22. They were really young, and they were sitting and talking and laughing. And and I could sense that there were a lot of other people over here. I knew there was Grandma and Grandpa, their parents, and the twins that died before, when they were died just after birth, in between Leela and Dad's age, and lots of people. And it was very jovial, and Dad's family were all these kind of fun, laughing people anyway. And they were talking and laughing. And then I heard thump, 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 thump. And I knew my husband was coming down the stairs to tell me he was going. And he said, he's passing, he's going. And I jumped up and I said, I was at a party. And I ran up the stairs. And in the room was Mom on one side and my sister on the other side. And Mom was feeling his wrist for a pulse. So I was on his right side. So I was on the left side of the bed, and I felt she felt the pulse, then I felt a pulse. Then she felt his neck, and then I felt his neck. The second I touched his neck, this amazing energy went whoosh through me and pushed me back. And I went, did you feel that? And it went right through my energy right here. And I was like, oh my gosh, did you feel that? And I was looking around, and everyone's looking at me like, this is not really the time, Janet. And I'm like, did you feel that? Oh my gosh. Oh, that energy, did you feel it? I mean, it literally just whoosh and pushed me back. And they're all looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm just having this thing. And So to describe this energy, it was pure joy, bright, amazing white, and golden glittery, and children laughing, and birds singing, and a creek, the sound that a creek makes, bubbling, gurgling brook, whatever you want to call it. I never call anything a brook, but all of those sounds and the most pure joy. And it just went whoosh and passed out through me. And I just stood there and I was just having a moment and everyone else. And then I tried to like, oh my gosh, and I finally kind of had to let that go and focus on mom and kind of come back because I was kind of just gone. And to backtrack just a minute is that before we moved in here, when Dad, after we brought him home from the rehab, I was living 30 miles away, my husband and I would call him in the evenings or I would drive over and I would always say, Dad, if you're going to go, when you go, come by on your way out and tell me. And give me a little thumbs up. Try not to scare me. If you have to, I imagine that I would see him and that he would give me a thumbs up or like, it's okay, sweetheart. And he said, I will, I promise. And he did. He did come through and say goodbye on his way out. Even though I was living here now and I was caretaking him and giving him a kiss goodnight every night, he did. Then, as we were preparing for the funeral, which we had here at the house, now he had a nickname of Buck.
Okay.
And I burned it in his coffin. I had gotten a casket, a wooden, beautiful pine handmade casket. It was relatively inexpensive. It was only $700. It was beautifully made. And I burned Buck in the top the night before he died. That's just nothing necessarily to do with the story, but that's just really Dad. Great sense of humor. So this is just a little notebook that we found of his. And it has, probably can't see, it says a dream. It's probably backwards, but this is his writing. And we found this and I copied it and gave it all out to my nieces and nephews and brothers, sisters. And I found this. And he talks about a dream that he's had reoccurring. He's had this dream many times and and the dream varies in the center and in the middle in different ways. And sometimes he falls off a cliff and he's in a dark place. Sometimes he trips and he goes down and he ends up in this dark area where there's a tree and then he climbs back up to this grassy plateau. But here's how it always ends. As I reached the top and I looked over, there was this beautiful place with animals and birds of all kinds. And I started to walking across this pasture with this green grass and birds and animals. And there appeared a large group of people sitting around and standing around a picnic table. And as I came closer, I could clearly see them. There was my mother, dad, and brother and sister, and grandparents, my wife's mother and dad, and her parents and her brother, and many more of our family.
Oh,
and so this was a few days later that I found this. And I thought, I saw that. I saw that. I was able to go as he was passing to be with him in that realm and see where he was and the joy. And he actually, I feel like it was his spirit passed through me. And it was so unexpected. I mean, I've watched other near-death experiences. Well, no, I've watched hundreds of near-death experiences or read them since a long, long time. Only just a couple of shared death experiences. And
Mhm.
so I thought I would see his body rise up. I thought I would see him standing. And it wasn't like that at all. It was when my mind was calm and I was able to rest, I went into that realm with him and then came up and felt him go through. And then he wrote this, I think it was like 20 years. It doesn't have a date on it, but he wrote a lot of this about 15 or 20 years ago. And he didn't know at the time that he was writing it to me to validate this. It's all just so amazing and miraculous. And it's something that I cling to in hard times. Like, okay, what do I know? Because there's so much that you let go of, right? And your spiritual expansion. And I just go back, what do I know? I know this, what I've shared today. Beyond a lot of things, I don't know. I don't know anything. But this I know because I felt it and experienced it.
So, Janet, it sounds like when you were on your bed and you were in this state and you were there with your father and your and his sister,
Mhm.
um, that you weren't observing that space, but you were in that space with them. Am I correct?
I they He didn't look up and look at me. They didn't interact with me. I felt like I was there observing it, but they didn't acknowledge me. They were just I mean, I could feel it, I could see it. I almost feel like I could have touched the table, but I didn't because I was just like, what's this? And then thump, thump, thump. And he's gone. I mean, it just all happened so quickly. I feel like I was more observing it. Yeah, I was observing it, but I was there. I don't know how else to explain
Yes.
it.
Yep. You were there. Um, yeah. What I was trying to tease out was whether you were in another dimension, but you were there with them. They just were.
I was absolutely in another dimension.
Yep.
Whether I
Uh,
was a dimension step away, right next to it, so that I could see it, but I wasn't in it. But I was there, and I don't ever recall reading this or seeing this or anything, uh, ever finding this before. But it was just such a beautiful circle that tied it up. I'm just continued to be amazed by it.
and so, how has this experience changed you?
It's deepened. Um, it's deepened my desire to understand more, to connect more, with that realm, with um, that when times here get really hard and weird and dysfunctional, and I'm feeling a lot of blah blah drama, family stuff, that I can say, okay, this is one of the things I know that was not of this 3D dimensional thing. It was here and beyond it. It was a beautiful blend of it all. And it just makes me thirst more for those kinds of experiences, but you can't really effort, in my experience so far. You can't make those happen and effort them. You can go and knock on the door and it opens sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. And that's my experience so far.
So, you have tried to go back to that space again.
Well, prior to this, I came close to that space, in at meditation retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza. So, but since then, I've not been able to really go back there. I guess I really haven't tried to go back there to feel those feelings, although I did do a life between life regression. And when I went through the life between life thing, I went to where Dad was, and he got up from the picnic table and he came to me and he took my hand. But then there were big Romanesque arches, and there was it was a little bit kind of a different scene, and nobody else was there. It was just Dad, and he came and took my hand and smiled. And then I went off on another adventure in the life between life thing. So,
And did you, or have you been able to keep up contact with your dad since that episode, or just in general?
Not overtly, now and again. And I guess I don't really call on him, but every once in a while, my mom has been getting all sorts of things. And she says, well, something was knocking underneath my bed last night, woke me up, and I think it was your dad. And I'm like, okay. And the other night he was in the closet knocking around and woke me up. Dad was a real joker. I mean, one of his favorite jokes that I remember as a kid, it's after church, we all were hurrying home and we were hungry and all of that. And on the counter was a jar of molasses. And he walks over and he looks at the jar and he just shakes his head and says, poor little moles.
I'm sorry, say that again, poor little.
So there was a jar of molasses on the counter, and he shakes his head and says, poor little moles.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that's right. My dad. My dad had great sense of humor.
Yes, we would call that a dad joke. Yeah.
That was such a dad joke. Yeah. Great sense of humor. Yeah, Dad and I, being the youngest of 6, I didn't have I was more in touch with Mom younger, but as I was older, Dad helped me build a house up in the mountains, and then, helped me with animals and different things. He helped me with a lot of things. And when I moved in here, I took the area that he had been, because he wasn't using it anymore, where he used to build birdhouses and lots of different things. He's very creative. And I took that space and turned it into a pottery studio. And he would come and sit out there and watch me do things. And he enjoyed it.
Yeah. So it's been a year since your dad's passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the sense that your sense of curiosity was really heightened as a result of this experience. But anything else changed for you?
No, I don't really. I go deeper into meditation. I'm on a quest now. I don't miss a day. And today I was kind of hurrying because I got behind this morning, and I thought, I only have about 18 minutes to do meditation. So I chose the ones that added up to that. And sometimes I just do music, sometimes I do guided, but most of the time it's just music, and with binaural beats. But I'm determined. In fact, I just recently registered for Joe Dispenza's advanced follow-up, which is 3 days of super intense all night long. I mean, just like big, deep meditation stuff. And I've been kind of afraid of it because I hear it's really intense and you just can't go there playing around. You got to be serious. But I'm serious. There's not any playing around anymore. I'm on a quest. I'm waiting for it all to open up. having been in a high demand religion prior to this, and with a lot of dogma and a lot of you gottas, you should, you have to's, and you got to
Yep,
jump a
I'm
lot of
with you on that.
hoops, and
Mhm.
the whole worthiness thing, and having to do worthiness interviews, and and there were a lot of things that I wouldn't look at within the church, with problematic things with church history and a lot of other things. I wouldn't look at it because I knew once I looked, I couldn't unsee it. And then I was going to have to make decisions. So I was like, I can't look. Now, when I come up against something that's troubling to me, whether that's extraterrestrial stuff, whether it's whatever that is, and I take a look, I just breathe, and I look, and something, just because something is unsettling doesn't mean, it just means that it's new to me, and it might shake some paradigms. It doesn't mean that it's evil or bad or anything like. It just means, necessarily, just look at it, and I can always discard what doesn't fit.
Yeah.
I'm okay. This is all right. And consequently, after that experience with Dad that opened another level up, I've had just more and more expansion and understanding, and I'm becoming more and more fearless in my search for, I don't want to say truth, because what's truth? That's why it's more for me about beauty and compassion within myself, for myself and for others, and finding the beauty and the amazingness of it. And even though currently there's some really trying things going on with my life that get me to my mother heart, that's what I am on the search. And that becomes now not a reason, but it's like a pushing point. It's just like, okay, this is happening. I'm not going to focus on this thing, this issue. I'm going to focus on the beauty and the amazingness, and what else is there, and what I desire, and putting my energy into those quantum entanglements instead of these hard ones over here.
Got it.
These ones that are troublesome.
And who is the first person you told about your shared death experience?
Well, it was right there. Mom and my sister and her husband and my husband were all there. And then I did share it. I didn't share the part about the dream part first.
Mm.
I just shared the energy part, because at this funeral, by the way, which was on the 20th, we buried him on the 20th.
Your mom's birthday.
His mother's birthday is the 21st. So 20th is my son's birthday. But so all of that, I had no idea. So it turned out to be that knowing accurate. It was an accurate knowing for how it played out. And then it makes me, go ahead.
And what about your family and friends? What has been their reaction to your story, and for the clearly there's changes in your life and in you? What are they saying about that?
Oh, this is more Janet weirdness. She's off her rocker. She's
welcome to the club, Janet.
She left the, yeah, when I did a course correction, and nobody likes that when I say that about leaving church, but when I say on my course correction, they're like, ugh. But anyhow, when I had a course correction back then in the end or halfway through 2017, and then have just been on this journey of expansion and learning. And what it is for me, and I heard this and I thought it was so true, the handle to the prison, to get out of your prison, isn't out here. It's only in the inside. There's no handle out here to open the door to get out. The only way to get out is to go in. And I've poo-pooed and put aside meditation for years. I kept hearing it. Yeah. And then as I've gotten more and more serious, but after Dad's passing and all of the trauma around his caretaking with my older siblings and the kind of, I'm learning detachment too. And that is just getting beat into me, is detaching from, I didn't know I was addicted to being well thought of by my siblings, and to being the one that everybody got along with, the good girl that checked all the boxes in the religion, that did all of the things and jumped all the hoops and I had a relationship with all of my siblings and, all of that. And I didn't realize how much I was addicted to being well thought of and liked. And leaving the religion was one thing, and then caretaking and not doing it the way that siblings wanted to, and then all of the drama around that, and my children, all this stuff I had just learned. And the dog is whining at the door. Pottery has taught me that also. And interestingly, in 2018, I started taking pottery classes. Now, when you look at pottery, all the elements, earth, water, fire, air, and intention, centrifugal force, when you're doing on the wheel. Yep. And you have to play by its rules. And then you can hear, as I was on the wheel and doing these things, I could hear all of that. Why didn't you do this? We got to figure this out. All of that stuff started really coming up. So clay and pottery has been an amazing mentor to me, and grounding me and helping me just really get centered and center on the wheel.
I got it.
Anyway.
I got it.
But it truly is. It's been amazing. And so my family and the way I'm just more, and my husband, who's still in the religion, has just kind of gone on the journey with me. But and he was here, so he saw that I was experiencing something. He saw that. So, and he's had me relay different meditation experiences that I've had and other things. And what I believe that what he's related to me is that through the journey of which this shared death has been, in a way, a validating experience and another jump off to a more expansion, is that, in the detachment and in the judgment just has to go. Judgment of others and of myself just does not have a place. It's truly just compassion. It is compassion and being open to what more beauty can I find.
That is a wonderful place to be, at compassion and place of non-judgment. That's a profound change in you.
Especially coming from, I was extremely judgmental, because when you come from a culture that everything is you're being judged, and and you have the Christianity judgment aspect there, and then you're judged. It's a perfectionist culture, and the high demand religion I came from was perfectionists, and then you have worthiness interviews, and you got to do these things, and you got to attend, and you got to, all of these things that you're supposed to be doing. And you realize, when I came to understand that it wasn't about any of that, it wasn't about any of it, and that I had been so judgmental to everybody else, and I was so angry because I was also judging myself. And that's because, the whole Wayne Dyer tells the story, you squeeze an orange, what comes out? The orange juice, because that's what's inside. And because I was judging everybody else, it's because I was in the perfectionist culture and I was really judging myself. So and I'm I'm still way messy. We're all messy, and we all come by our stuff honestly. And that's just where I have to come back to all the time.
And how about switching gears just a little bit? Because you had this experience, how did that affect the grief you had around losing your father?
I don't really feel like I even needed to grieve, because I was here every day serving him, and he was miserable. He kept saying he wanted to go, but he wasn't going to go without Mom. And she said, but I'm not ready to go. And so they had this thing going back and forth. So when I saw that he was going to be relieved of the misery that he was in, and I felt his joy upon being released from this body. I felt it, I experienced it, I saw his joy, I saw him rejuvenated, I saw it, I felt it. I didn't really mourn him. To me, he's back like this,
Oh, yeah, that's a great pick.
Yeah. Handsome man, beautiful soul. That's, to me, I saw him, and I really haven't grieved. I don't feel the need. It's like, what? He's got a good gig going on. I'm not feeling sorry for him. I mean, he was long gone. He had dementia, and he was here and kind of not here. And so the dad that I knew even in for me, they didn't start to really get old till 90. In 80s, they were still pretty vital. So my dad's was gone for about 5 years, really, slowly being gone. So that he was returned and I got to see that, it's just grace. It's just grace and beauty.
I love that's what a lovely way to end this interview. It's just grace. It's just beauty. Is there anything last words you'd like to leave us with?
I guess I'll just reiterate, there's nothing outside of you that will ever bring you the peace that you're searching for, or the joy, or the comfort, or whatever, or the expansion. Now, you can learn and see, you can glean, all of those things, but until you bring it inside, I guess it was, who was it, Rumi or another ancient said that a path cannot be taught. It can only be walked and experienced. So you can read all these things and learn them, but until you experience them and you sit down or sit somewhere quiet, block out the world and get to know, and like Joe Dispenza teaches, overcome this body, get the mind as quiet as you can, and come to know the divinity of yourself. None of this is going to matter. It's there's no handle out here. The only handle to open the door to the other realms of joy and beauty and grace and learning is within. There's no other place. Start with 5 minutes. There's lots of little short meditations on YouTube. Start with 5 minutes, just start and just do it. I put it off too long. However, I don't know how I would have gotten through these last 2 years with all of the drama. And like I said, all of the crazy world stuff was just a backdrop to all of the stuff that was happening here within the family and within myself and with parents and children and things. I don't know how I would have gotten through with that without meditation and going within to my beautiful self.
And Janet Johnson, you are a beautiful soul. And this has been a wonderful interview full of insights and really some heartfelt lessons. I am so grateful that you were here with us today and had a chance to share all that you did in your shared death experience. This is just terrific. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's such an honor. Thank you.
Wasn't that a wonderful interview? Janet made some points I think we can expand on. Just to be clear, these are my perspectives, but that's why you watch the Afterlife Files, to gain perspective by using more than one lens with which to view these rich stories. First off, did you notice how closely Janet's SDE matched the images in her dad's dream journal? There was the park, the picnic table, the green grass, who was attending, where the participants were sitting, the jovial attitude of all the guests. It seems to me that Janet's father either desired to have such an event 20 years before and prearranged it in his dream, or he moved forward in time and visited the event as it was taking place during his transition. Both have been done by others I have interviewed, so either explanation could be correct here. Or, as I think about it now, both could be correct. Both could be true if you realize that time is nonlinear in the non-physical universe. Okay. Next, did you notice how, in Janet's case, her SDE was a visceral event? It knocked her backwards. It also propelled her consciousness out of her physical body. She had to come back in order to be with her family again. I hope you noticed her hand gestures that simulated Janet re-entering her body. This next one is truly significant. We learned during the interview with William Peters that an SDE relies on two things. First, a heart connection between the one making the transition and the experiencer. And two, an agreement to share the experience. Both were present here. As to the heart connection, clearly Janet was the primary caretaker for her father, and her father expressed his sincere appreciation for her commitment and love. The invitation part, remember, Janet told us, and I'm going to quote here, "Dad, if you're going to go, when you go, come by on your way out and tell me, and give me a little thumbs up." He responded, "I will, I promise," and he did. So we've got the heart connection and the commitment to share the transition. Next, I noticed how important was the confirmation from the notebook to Janet's life. She said, "I know this." This is the anchor to which she now lives her dramatically altered life. Lastly, William Peters also told us it really helps the person experiencing the SDE if their mind is clear and calm. Janet had just put her head on the pillow. Her mind was calm when the SDE happened. Being peaceful at the time or around the time of the transition helps and enhances our chance of having an SDE. That's it for today. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, and comment. You can find the Afterlife Files on all podcast streaming apps: Apple, Google, Spotify, Audible, the lot. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, or pay us a visit at neardeathmeditations.com. Bye now. See you next time.